I hope that you're making your dreams come true. I hope that life is everything you want it to be. Now, what I would need is I would want everybody who is watching me on Facebook to let me know if you can hear me and you can see me. If you can hear me and you can see me, okay, just let me know. If you can't see me and hear me, then I guess you can't hear me when I ask you if you can hear me. So if you can hear me, let me know so that I'll know that I'm not talking to myself. I want to say what's up to my friends on Periscope. What's going on, black people? How you doing? It is time for Black Friday. The week is moving forward. We got Thanksgiving coming up. After Thanksgiving, you got Black Friday, and then you got the rest of the holidays. You know, Christmas, Kwanzaa, everything else, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, whatever you and your people believe in. And I think that this is an opportunity. This is when black people have to really come together and really do some serious powernomics. I'm really talking, big time moves in terms of solidifying our support for one another, our economic love for one another. Economic love is as important as good economic sex. That's what it is. So I want y'all to get out there and get freaky with each other in terms of building economic empires, feeding black families. If you support black businesses, you're feeding a black family. And I want you to kind of understand that. I mean, I think a lot of us forget that. We just sort of think that if we support a business, we're getting somebody rich, or we're just thinking about the product that we're buying. But the truth is that you're really feeding somebody's kids, not just the business owner, but you're feeding the kids of all the people that work for that business owner. You're feeding that community. You got initiatives that conscientious black people will pursue if their business is doing well. Like, for example, we have a black owned business, and when people are making it rain on our business, that allows us to go deeper in terms of hiring more black people, allows us to do more at the All Black National Convention. It allows us to pursue activism and initiatives in the community. You see, what people don't understand about activism, you have a lot of people who are activists who say, I hate capitalism, I'm not a capitalist, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine if you're not. But what I'm going to tell you is that if you don't learn how to make your own money, if you don't understand money, then eventually your activism will be dwarfed by the capitalism, meaning that you're going to have to go beg the capitalists for a job. You're going to have to abandon your activism. You're going to have to give up your fight to power. And you're going to have to go because you got to go work for some white man who you're asking to pay your bills. So one of the reasons that I talk so much about money and economics, and as you know, I taught finance for 23 years, and one of the reasons that I am big on economics is because we have to understand that if we don't have our economic systems under control and find ourselves economically empowered, becoming economic soldiers, then we're going to end up being exploited and victimized and conquered by other people who have economic strength. And I think that's extremely important for us to understand this, because if we don't get this, then we're going to end up wondering why everybody else has power but us. But we got a bunch of Christmas gifts. We have a bunch of Jordans and Beats by Dre headphones, and we looking fly at the club, but we're struggling under stress every day because a white man is paying our bills and he's not treating us right. Now give me 1 second here. I got to email or message my intern real quick. While we do this, if you want a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, please go to drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. You can get a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar. You can go check that out. And also, if you haven't shared this to your Twitter, your Facebook, or something like that, please share, please share, please share, please share, please share. Please take 1 second and just hit the share button. It would mean the world to me, because we're trying to use Chitlin Circuit bootleg guerrilla tactics to build the next black CNN. It might take a generation, but by using these Chitlin Circuit tactics, by connecting people one by one, connecting a few hundred people a day, I've done the math, and my knowledge tells me that if you just go a couple hundred people at a time, a couple thousand people at a time, eventually you can build a network that reaches millions of people around the world. That's how we built everything we have now. Now, maybe 5-6 years ago, when I did, articles and, videos and all this other stuff, they would get around, but they didn't get around like they do now. And so now I can talk about somebody on the live stream, and because there's only a few degrees of separation between intelligent, conscious, and thoughtful black people, it'll always get back to that person. Like if I talk about somebody's mama, if I talk about Tariq Nasheed or something, with Tariq's my homeboy, so I would never do that in a negative way. But if I talk about Tariq Nasheed, believe me, within a day, somebody's gonna message Tariq and be like, "Oh man, you know Dr. Boyce said this about you, dog." So that tells me that the grapevine's working, and really it's very similar to like trying to go on a long trip. Like if you have to go from New York to California, yeah, you'd rather have a plane ticket. Maybe a jet airplane will get you there very quickly. Or if you can't get a plane ticket, you might get a bus ticket, or you might get in a fast car. But you can also get there by riding your bike. You can get there by walking. You can even get there by walking, and you can walk several times across the country just by putting one foot in front of the other. So our goal was like, okay, we could build a CNN type of network for black people by getting $1 billion in capital and building this massive infrastructure that would cost just tons of money. But we ain't got that kind of money. We ain't got that kind of capital. The government doesn't make funds available to black people and black business owners the way it should. And banks don't make big loans to black people. So we were like, we can't work with 10 million or 10, or 100 million or $1 billion. Maybe we got to work with $10,000, right? And if we do that, then we can move forward. Now, somebody mentioned Bob Johnson and BET and how he did that with BET. I mean, God bless him in terms of what he did with BET and what he accomplished. But I'm still skeptical in terms of what Bob Johnson really represents. I don't know what Bob Johnson represents as a person. I know that Bob Johnson is being considered for a position in Donald Trump's cabinet from what I just read. And I don't have a problem with that per se. I think that somebody says you using a microphone gives you a minister type feel. Well, you know what? You can say I believe deeply in the gospel of black economic empowerment. That is my gospel. That's my church. That's what I talk to black people about, because I believe that's one of the keys to making us great. And the thing about BET with Bob Johnson is that Bob Johnson was a little bit too much of a capitalist. I'm not a fan of the Bob Johnson style of capitalism, at least the way he did it, for the first 20, 30 years of his career. Maybe he's evolving. I don't know. But I don't like the MOE mindset. MOE is money over everything. Bob is all about that dollar bill. And I can't sort of endorse that mentality, because if you are just all about the dollar bill, then yeah, you're going to have a whole lot of dollar bills, but you ain't going to have no soul left. Every dollar that you make is going to erode at the fabric of who you are and what you represent, and so what I believe is that dollar bills should be used to empower you to become more of what you're supposed to be, as opposed to whittling you down and weakening you and making you less than what you're supposed to be. Sure, there's trade-offs, right? There's times where, for example, when I talk about money, do I always feel comfortable, sort of talking in my podcast and asking people to purchase things from us or sign up for things? Not always. I mean, on one hand, I feel okay about it because I know the products are healthy and and are fairly priced and will make your life better. But at the same time, I got to deal with headaches. I got to deal with black people who think that every black business owner must be a crook, that I can't care about the community and still run a business where everything isn't free. And I just have to tell them, like, well, I mean, if we give everything away for free, then we ain't gonna have no money to pay our people. Our kids, their kids can't eat. So what, you want us to go beg white people for money? Is that what you prefer? I mean, you go to work for a white man every day and you get money from him. Like, I would never do that. Should I clown you and call you a coon because you going up there and you serve in Walmart to get money? No, I understand that you have people you have to feed, and that getting your money is important for your survival. So when you talk about, running a business, I think there's always that balance between the money and the ethics. And so what makes me feel comfortable ethically about everything that we do is that, I know education is valuable. And I know that the things that we sell to people are things that are going to make their lives better. I also know from a comparative standpoint that I will see the same Negro who just told me he can't afford $20 or $30 for a book will come back and I will see that same dude spend $90 going to the club. Or I'll see him spend $80 taking his family to the movies and a dinner, or I'll see him spend, $200 on some Jordans. So I'll just say to him, like, look, man, okay, I understand you're struggling, but understand this. Look, if you go back and you count up all the money you gave white folks and didn't ask no questions, if you just supported things you believed in like us with just 5% of that, we could actually do quite a bit with that, and we're going to put that money right back into your community. So, don't give me a hard time because everything ain't free. You're not a welfare recipient. You're not a charity case. You're not disabled. You're not functionally economically broken. We have 1.1 trillion in spending power, which is more than the gross domestic product of most countries around the world. The black people have more money than most countries on this earth. So, anybody who says black people are broke is just wrong. The film that I have coming out with Yvette Carnell, we have Boyce Watkins Films, and we have a film coming out called Democracy, the Black American Horror Story. And basically Yvette and I are kind of going back and forth with our different perspectives on where black people are, what the economic situation looks like for black people, and what the political situation looks like for black people, and how those two things kind of emerge. And I can't wait to see it. It's going to, we got some good people helping with it. Raheem Shabazz is helping work on it. We got Madam President is one of the producers on the film, Jen Nicole. So we got a lot of great people who are seeking to make something great. Somebody says we're only broke when it's time to do something or sacrifice. I think sometimes that's fundamentally true. Most people, I want you to watch people. Watch how people behave when it's time to do something that they really want to do. Watch how a dude becomes an expert problem solver. He becomes MacGyver in terms of figuring out how to make something out of nothing when it comes to going to visit a pretty girl when he thinks he might get some ass. He becomes literally the most brilliant and creative genius that you can ever imagine, right? Because he wants it. He wants to get that girl, and he's gonna figure it out. If he ain't got a ride, he gonna get a bus pass. If he ain't in a bus pass, he gonna call his boy. If he can't call his boy, he gonna ride his bike. He can't ride his bike, he gonna walk. That's what I used to do. Shoot, when I would meet a pretty girl, I would walk 8 miles to go see a pretty girl. I did that. I went to go see this real pretty girl. Her name was Candace. It was in Louisville when I grew up, and I wanted to see this girl so bad. I remember I rode my bike 10 miles and then had to ride in the rain to go to her house. And I got to this girl's front door. Her mama opened the door and looked me up and down like, what is wrong with you? You clearly are insane. And that was my first experience with love. You know what love is. Love is that thing that can either make your life wonderful or get you in a whole lot of trouble. And so anyway, the sad thing was the girl didn't even like me. She just dissed me so bad. It was humiliating, but it was worth it at the time. I wanted to see the girl, so I did what it took to get there. I figured it out. People, when they want something, they figure it out. When they want to see Beyonce and Beyonce's coming in town and you ain't even got money to pay the gas bill and you want to see Beyonce, what do? You figure it out. When you want the latest iPhone, you figure it out. I was talking to a young lady about that. I said, whenever you want the latest iPhone or whatever, you seem to figure that out. When you want a Gucci or Coach purse, you figure that out. When you want a new pair of Jordans, you always figure that out. But when I tell you to go read this book, Powernomics, so you can learn how money works and become a better decision maker, every tiny excuse stops you from doing what you need to do. She was like, oh, well, I was going to read it, but my fingernail was hurting and I wasn't, I couldn't get it. It was too hard to read because, my fingernail, it was really hurting. Okay, whatever. Or you see, or you'll see somebody that, if you have something like a class that they can take that will be beneficial to them, that will change their life. Okay, here's a class on how to invest in the stock market. In case y'all haven't watched, in case y'all haven't noticed, the stock market has skyrocketed since the election. Skyrocketed. People are making money hand over fist. Trillions of dollars in wealth is being created right now in the stock market. And those who participate are getting a piece of that money without going to work every day. So if somebody teaches a class, look, here's how you invest in the stock market. The class is $49. Oh, I can't afford it. Or if you really care about black people, you would do that for free, cause that ain't right. You charging people money, but that same person would have spent money buying something worthless from white people. But instead of dropping whatever you got to spend to get the information that's going to change your life, you put your money in places that don't make any sense. So then what happens is you're basically writing a ticket. You're writing your own ticket for perpetual victimhood. You then see that same person who didn't take necessary steps to make the decisions they needed to make to put themselves in a good situation. And then later on, they're saying, well, you lucky because you got money, and I'm out here struggling, and and you don't know what it's like to struggle, and I'll be like, well, actually, I do know what it's like to struggle, which is why I work so hard to not struggle anymore. That's why I work so hard to learn how money works. When I went to college and they said, well, why do you want to major in finance? I said, well, because I don't have any money, and I figure if I learn about money, then maybe I can make some money by talking about money and teaching people about money. Like, that was literally what I was thinking when I was 18 years old. I was like, I don't know where the money's at, but I'm going to go study money and obsess over this so that I can figure out where the money's located. Entrepreneurship, same thing. I said, I'm going to obsess over this and study this as hard as I studied everything else in my life. And that's what made a difference for me. So generally speaking, it's not rocket science. If you look at the gap in wealth between the rich people, the 1%, the people that everybody's mad at for good reason, because sometimes they do some dirty stuff. If you look at the wealth gap between the 1% and everybody else, you will find in the data that this gap is mostly defined by one major factor. That is participation in the stock market. Those who participate in the stock market are usually far wealthier than those who are not. We have a program for kids, blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. It's at blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. And in this program, we teach the kids how to buy their first share of stock in 10 minutes or less. We got parents who email me every day telling me, oh, yeah, my son owns such and such a shares of stock now because of blah, 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 blah. Oh, he's too happy because the stock market's been blowing up. And I can show you mathematically how simply investing a measly $25 a week in the stock market over a 30-year period will guarantee that your children are almost millionaires, that your children will have tons of financial assets. But if you can't see the long-term play in wealth building, then you're not going to get it. You see, nobody gets rich quickly. Very few people get rich quickly in America. They usually get rich slowly. Donald Trump's family didn't get rich quick. They got rich slowly. And so the election that he won in 2016 was won in 1936 when his father decided that he wasn't going to just work for other people. He wasn't just going to be a laborer. He was actually going to buy property and rent the property out. He learned the fundamentals of real estate investing. Andre Hatchett has the blackrealestateschool.com, which has a class called Real Estate 101. The first month is totally free, and the monthly fee ain't hardly nothing. Andre, in this course, gives you access to the best and baddest black real estate experts you've ever seen, who flip houses all the time, make crazy passive income, all this other stuff. He has this information. If you go to theblackrealestateschool.com, it's right there, theblackrealestateschool.com. Everything you need is out there. The question is, are you using the internet to empower yourself, or are you using it to look for world star hip hop videos? If you're looking for world star hip hop, then I can't help you. If you're looking for something that's going to educate you, we got education all day long. We got a university. A person could skip college easily and just study all the stuff that we put out there and do better than they would if they went to college. And I'm not joking. I'm not kidding. I have people like Damon Dash who came through and talked in detail for over 100 hours of footage in IntelligentBossMoves.com. In the IntelligentBossMoves.com, Damon Dash literally talks for over 100 hours about how he built Jay-Z, how he created Kanye West, how he created Rachel Roy, how he helped Jay-Z get on the map when nobody was trying to check for Jay-Z. So how he's made movies, how he's done all of this stuff. Somebody asked a question earlier. They were like, do we have something on stock markets? If you go to you're just getting started, there's two ways you can learn about the stock market from me right now. And we're developing other curricula as we speak. One is theBlackWealthBootcamp.com. That's theBlackWealthBootcamp.com. That's a popular class. Everybody loves it. It's been around for a couple years, and we have thousands and thousands and thousands of alumni who do business together now. And then the other is Black Money 101. That's Black Money 101. BlackMoney101.com is a platform for people who are just getting started, who just want to begin at the very basics. If you go to BlackMoney101.com, you can get in there. I actually give over time we give access to like things from the kids program, stuff like that too, because there are what we found was that when we were teaching the kids were actually out learning their parents, right? Like I don't play. I'm not joking. I mean, my credentials, I don't let no one can question my credentials because I know what they are. So this is something I know. This is what I taught for 20 something years. I taught my first finance class at the college level when I was 22 years old. So basically what happened was when the kids were jumping in these programs, they knew stuff that their parents didn't know. So I found that there were parents going through our kids program to learn the basics because it made it unintimidating. And I loved that. I was like, this is interesting. Well, I mean, we made it for kids. Like, we're going to use puppets. Like, we got a whole studio out in LA right now where they're making like financial videos with puppets and everything else to just make it fun and unscary, because everybody's scared of this stuff. And my thing is like, why would you be scared to learn about money when money is one of the most important things in your life? Like, why would you be afraid to learn about the thing that can literally make the difference between your family being at peace versus your family being in the midst of total, complete chaos? It doesn't make any sense. What I think black people need to do, here's the problem. Look, you ain't white. You're not white. Let's just start right there, please. I know that sounds crazy, but I need you to understand that some of y'all don't know this yet. You ain't white. So one of the things that you don't need to come and say to me anywhere, and I had a prominent friend who's on a radio show. I'm not gonna say his name, but he came to me and said, well, so and so said that everybody should try to own a business and all that, but white people, they work for corporations, and that's not a big deal when they do it. And I'm like, yeah, but you ain't white. Like those corporations, number one, they were not built with you in mind. They weren't built for you. They're not your companies. You think that they are because somebody lied to you about the American dream and what this country's all about. But it ain't. I mean, Donald Trump's election alone, the fact that 59 million people voted for him along with the white supremacists tells you this country ain't what you think it is, right? And so I tell him, I said, look, these companies aren't giving black people the jobs. They're not getting the promotions. They get to these jobs. They're so stressed out that they're dying early, and people are literally losing their freaking minds, ending up in insane asylums, drinking alcohol, hooked on drugs, going crazy in the midst of depression because of what they're going through every day at work. So you tell me that this is an environment that is comfortable for black people and not completely and totally hostile to the point where the only way you can survive and find some semblance of any form of tranquility is by totally morphing yourself into something other than what you are, to the point where code switching really becomes kind of a way of life, right? You just think that that's how you're supposed to be, that you're supposed to be one person when you go to work and a whole different person when you come home. And it's weird to me when I see Negroes who are getting a you know what I'm talking about, like regular black people where they get in a corporate setting and they just like, well, the quarterly numbers were quite extraordinary. And we found that when you diversify into these industries, that the capital intensive industries tend to have a pervasive effect on the ability to quantify the motivations of those in the other industry. I mean, it's weird hearing black people, corporate Negroes talk, because I'll be like, what are you talking about? Like, you really used a lot of long words and you didn't say shit right now. You didn't say anything. Like, I'm smart. I went to school and I analyze every word that comes out of your mouth. When people talk, I listen for intelligence and I identify it, whether they speak with broken English or they speak with perfect English. I'm looking for intelligence, and I'll hear a whole bunch of corporate Negroes who think they sound smart when all they're doing is they become corporate robots and they know all the terminology that sounds good. Or they'll put together this really beautiful PowerPoint presentation that gets them the $1 million contract, and I'll be like, why would somebody pay $1 million for that? That's bullshit. Like, you just gave them like a lot of sugar-coated bullshit. So I don't like that. I don't think that that's the way you're supposed to live. I'm sorry. I don't think that's normal. I don't think that's human. And I think that there's a connection between the insanity of being on the corporate plantation and the insanity that you see when people leave the plantation, right? When they get that 2 weeks of vacation, number one, they have to do nothing that has anything to do with work. They hate work. Their job every day is so toxic to them that they have to completely get away from it. Anything that you have to detox yourself from is probably not good for you, right? Like they say, for example, if you catch up on all your sleep on the weekends, that means you're not getting enough sleep during the week. If you hate your job so much that you got to get away from it and not think about it for 2 straight weeks in order to keep your sanity, that probably means that job is not good for your mental health. But you'll see other manifestations. You'll see people drinking like crazy. Lawyers drink a lot, and I think it's because lawyers hate their jobs. Lawyers are some of the biggest alcoholics I know. My roommate in college became a lawyer, and I remember that dude used to drink like crazy, and I'll be like, man, why do you drink so much? And so anyway, and I'm not making fun of it, but it's true, so or when you see people that just do things like they go crazy when they have free time. The reason they go crazy is because you're so clamped up. It's like how me and my friends would joke about, how like, it's always like the quote unquote really good Christian girl who's like the wildest one, when it comes to like, sex and all this other stuff. Anybody ever heard that joke? Like, well, a lot of times I think that repression of a desire is what causes that desire to come out in a binge like fashion, because you're forcing yourself to lock yourself in a cage so badly. When you finally get to stretch out, you go crazy. You just lose it. And so I'm not big on repression. When my daughters grew up, I did not repress them when it came to sexuality or anything. We talked about it. I'd be like, oh yeah, people do it all the time, and it's natural and it's normal, and it's a wonderful, beautiful thing, but it's powerful. It's powerful. It's the creation of life. So you got to be responsible. You don't want to let every man, you're precious. Don't let every man have the best of you. But when you pick the right man, give him the best of you, whatever you feel comfortable with, and don't feel like anybody's going to judge you for that. And so when we have we have the conversation in that tone, because I didn't want them to feel repressed, because I've seen what happens when you repress something. So when you repress freedom, for example, and let's get off the sexual topic, but if you repress freedom, as happens in the corporate plantation, then people go bananas when they finally get freedom. Just like kids, when you have those kids, anybody seen those kids that grow up when their parents like are overly protective and won't let them cross the street without like a guardian, without somebody like there to protect them? Those kids, what do they do when they go to college? They go nuts. They become the wildest, craziest ones because they ain't never had no freedom. When I went to college, I was pretty responsible, mainly because my parents had always given me like the freedom to do whatever I wanted. My father would just be like, well, you got to be home by 10 o'clock. If you ain't home by 10, the door will be locked. So it wasn't like I would get punished for not getting home for 10. I just couldn't get in the house. And so anyway, what I would just generally say is that, when I hear people say things like, well, if white people can do it, we can do it too. White people work for other people, we can do it too. I don't think that that's the accurate approach, because you ain't white. You're not white. Why is that important? Let's move to the next step. So given that we've accepted the assumption that we ain't white, the fact of the matter is that as a black person in this country, you have a unique set of circumstances, unique set of obstacles and hurdles that you must overcome. Your battle ain't his battle. A lot of the white man's battle was fought by his ancestors. The battle to get resources and wealth, their ancestors fought that. Hell or high water, fighting dirty. Yeah, they did all of that. But they did get what they needed to support their grandchildren. So they got institutions to support them. You're kind of going to have to do a lot of what white people might have done back 200 years ago. Not the same thing. I don't believe in stealing and robbing, killing off the Native Americans, all this other horrible stuff they did. But there are things that come in terms of building and developing infrastructure that I think can't be overlooked. You can't be so mad at your adversary that you don't acknowledge some of the things your adversary might have done to get ahead of you. Black people need businesses. We don't need more black people trained to go work for white people. We don't need that. So when you go to college, beware of these universities that will only teach you how to go work for somebody else, because that's going to limit you. I know a lot of highly educated doctors, lawyers, professors, and Indian chiefs who are struggling, one, because they have massive student loan debt, and B, because they don't know how to create other streams of income for themselves. So when they are living like the Joneses in the big house with the fancy car and the $3,000 suits, they end up deep in debt, and nobody really knows how much they're struggling behind the scenes. Everybody thinks they're doing well, but a lot of them aren't. You go to them and say, can I borrow $1,000? Or we need $2,000 for the family fund. They can't put the money up because they're $500,000 in debt. And I'm thinking about one person I know like that who's doing he looks like he's doing really well. He's got a big mansion, and I know his situation, and it's ugly. It's very, very ugly. So with that said, we need builders, we need entrepreneurs, we need economic Spartans. Anybody seen the movie? What was that movie? It had that movie. It wasn't Gladiator. It was 300. Anybody seen the movie 300? How you had, the dudes in Sparta, where they just kept it real. Like they felt that the defense of their city or their country was so important that all they did was they raised their boys to be soldiers from day zero, and the women were down too. The women, the queen was gangster. The queen was like, only real women can produce Spartan men. Only real Spartan women can produce a strong man. Right? So they would give birth to the soldiers and raise the soldiers. And when the soldiers got old, when the little boys got old enough, they send them to their daddies to go get their ass kicked in sword fights and constant training. And they trained them to embrace battle. They trained them on strategy. They trained them so well that when they went to war, if they had 200 people, they could literally go out and defeat 10,000 people, because the purity and the concentration of capability was so amazing that one Spartan soldier was like 10 or 20 of the adversary. Right? They look forward to dying on the battlefield. That was honor for them. They look forward to going to war. They look forward to defending their country. They look forward to taking on the biggest and baddest that there were out there. And I believe that children in the black community, parents who really want their kids to be strong and want the community to be strong, I think it's okay for you to commit to building an economically Spartan child. Now, what does that mean? That means not that he can't have fun. That doesn't mean he can't be a normal person and fit in. But I believe that you wire the kids from birth so that they are so on point when it comes to understanding of economics, financial systems, and entrepreneurship, and having discipline and their blackness, that one of them is worth 100 coons, that they could take on every coon on the planet because they're so well versed in who they are. They are so well centered in their greatness. They are so well prepared to take on the world. When I got to where I was doing what I'm doing right now, I didn't start off as an economic Spartan. I didn't start off with a Spartan-like approach. I became more Spartan about what I do when I started dealing with racism and white supremacy. When I started seeing just how evil white folks could be, not all white folks, but white supremacists could be in a work environment. And I remember I was fighting these battles, and it was horrible. I felt like I was getting my ass kicked. And I just said, you know what? You're not going to kill me. You're not. And if you do kill me, you're not going to make me quit. You may kill me physically, but you'll never kill me spiritually. I will never quit. I will never give up. I will fight to the death to reach my goals. And that was when I tapped into my true greatness. That was when I reached a level of elevation and understanding and focus that was so powerful that I had no fear of anyone, anywhere. And to this day, I could go on any television network on earth, debate any person. I could debate a whole group of people and feel totally fine with that. In fact, I don't know if y'all remember, a couple years ago, Don Lemon on CNN did that. He tried to, I guess he was mad because I was dissing Empire, right? And that's another reflection of my thinking, in that I didn't care if nobody else thought Empire was a coonish show. I didn't care. I just said, no, you know what? I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm okay. I'm confident enough in how I feel that I don't really care if 9 million other people disagree with me. It's not a big deal. Whatever. Then I'll just be that 1 in 9 million. I'm strong enough to defend my ideas against 9 million people. And I remember Don Lemon called it. Don Lemon was livid about it. I could tell, because he kept talking about what I was saying and why it was wrong and all this other stuff. And he even went on the Tom Joyner morning show and bashed me and played clips of what I said about Empire. And then he'd come back with his 2 cents. Now, if Don really, really wanted to have an open conversation, Don would have debated me on Tom Joyner's show. But I really don't. That show doesn't really fit my framework anyway, because it's kind of commercialized, and it's hard to really have a sort of a thoughtful, long, deep conversation, when you got all these commercial breaks and everything. So I was fine with not being on there. I just kind of laughed it off. But then I got an email from CNN saying Don Lemon wants you on the show. And I was like, I don't know why Don would want me on the show. This ain't nothing but a setup. I said, this brother's going to try. He's trying to get me there to embarrass me so that he can, bolster support for his friend Lee Daniels' show. And so I went on there, and it was a setup. I mean, basically there was, I think, 3 people on the panel, and then me, and I'm the only person on the panel who thinks Empire could be a problem, who thinks that this kind of programming presented to the world and to black people can be an issue, that these stereotypes perpetuated about black people could cause us problems in other areas, like when we go into the courtroom and people think that black man's a criminal because he looks like somebody they saw on TV. Like, I'm like, wait a minute, am I the only one who thinks this? And they're all yucking it up, and they're like, girl, did you see the last Empire? And they're like, well, at least, Dr. Watkins, at least black people are getting jobs. And I was like, wow. Like that's your standard that's your ethical standard, that just as long as we have jobs. I said, well, shit, why don't we all just become hookers? Like, because you could probably make a lot. I mean, if you broke, like you could go sell some ass and make a whole lot of money real fast. Like, why don't we become dope dealing hookers who kill for hire and sell children on the human trafficking market? Why don't we do that? If we do those 4 things, we could be really rich. We could be balling, y'all, for real. I mean, it was like, seriously. Like, what is this money over everything mentality that some people have? You know, you got to understand the power of money, but then you got to understand the weakness that you create for yourself when you start to worship money, especially when that money's coming from people who don't like you and people who want to destroy you and people who want to use their economic power to manipulate you. You see, economic power is an interesting double-edged sword. You see, on one hand, it can empower you, and it can be a great tool for you to build and for you to do great things. But it can also be used, it's also being used against you. Other people got bigger swords, and they're coming at you every day. They're using their money to come get black people in every way. What more ways than I can possibly lay out in one conversation? For example, during the election, the Democratic Party's just shoveling money into these starving black media outlets, these starving urban radio stations that are dying to get this money. The Democratic Party's buying ad after ad after ad after ad after ad. And you know what happened when Killer Mike, my homeboy, went on to one of these radio shows. It was one of these big urban radio shows hosted by a really funny guy. They told him straight up. They said, you cannot mention Bernie Sanders on the air. You cannot. If you mention him on the air, we're going to cut you off. That was it. Because they didn't want black people to even know that Bernie Sanders existed. That was how deep the corruption went. So I just want to say to y'all, like, you know, this sword is used against you every day. It's being used to control you all the time. Somebody asked what book I was reading from. It is Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. Dr. Claude Anderson is he's AKA one of the greatest black men in the history of the world, one of the greatest human beings, you know, as far as scholars and thinkers and leaders go. And the book, if you want to check out that book, his book Empowernomics, and some other books that I recommend that you read, the autobiography of Malcolm X, things like that, are at the drboycelibrary.com, thedrboycelibrary.com. This is where I kind of host like a lot of my favorite books that you that I think you may want to consider reading or recommending for your sons and daughters and children, because I think that we can build our own libraries and educate our own children. If you don't want to educate your kids, that's fine. Just let me help. When I've got educators, we created a whole Black History School. A lot of y'all don't know, we've actually got theblackhistoryschool.com, and where we go through all kinds of Black history. So that's really great because we got a lot of historians and stuff like that. So really, theoretically, black people really don't need the educational system. They don't need the public school system. We don't need universities. We've got enough resources online to educate our own children and give them everything they need. I would have complete confidence in putting any of my kids through programs online that will get them ahead, as long as they're reading and learning how to write. Those are the 3 things. Are they reading things? Can they do math? And can they write? And then also, do they think critically? If you're giving your children those sorts of lessons, then your kids are going to be fine. If you want a free e-copy of my book, you can go to drboycewatkins.net. That's drboycewatkins.net. If you want to know more about other programs we have, you can go to blackfinancialliteracy.com. That's blackfinancialliteracy.com. Please write that down. Also, please share. Hit the share button right now. Hit the subscribe button. All that good stuff so we can keep the conversation going. Let me see here. Somebody's asking, what does the future hold for the black race? Well, the future is one of those things where it can be, there are a lot of futures for the black race, right? It's like, what's my future? What is the future of Boyce Watkins in the next 30 seconds? I predict Boyce is going to grab a bottle cap and hold it up to the camera. No, I predict that Boyce is going to grab his pen and put it in his ear. Let's see, which future is it? I don't know. Well, can I predict the future? Well, here's the bottle cap in my hand. So that was the accurate prediction. But I could have also did this, right? So really, I have the power of predicting my own future, at least when it comes to the next 30 seconds. So my argument is that black people have the ability to be prognosticators when it comes to what our future holds. Your future holds whatever you decide is going to hold. If you decide you're going to fight, then good things are going to happen. Then you're going to fight back, and you might lose some fights too, but something's going to happen because you're going to fight. If you decide to give up and acquiesce and assimilate, then assimilation's in your future. So understand that predicting the future is not so much about luck or hoping for the best. Don't ever sit back and just hope for the best when it comes to something you can control. Don't sit around and pray to God that something's going to happen when you can decide if it's going to happen. Pray to God if you want to, but after you finish praying, go do it. Now, the only things you might hope for the best on or maybe pray about are things that you can't control. Like, so for example, I hope that I have a friend who is morbidly obese. He's very young and he weighs about 450 pounds. And I really hope that he decides to eat healthy so that he can lose weight. Now, what can I do? I can do a little bit. Maybe I could talk to him. Maybe I can give him some recommendations, but I can't control what he eats. So I might pray, like, God, please inspire him to eat healthy. So that's something I might pray about, something I might hope for the best on, but I can't, but that's something I really can't change myself. But when it comes to whether I'm going to lose weight, well, I'm not going to pray to God that he helps me, that he makes me lose weight. I'm just going to eat right. Right? I mean, I got choices in my life, right? Here, let me show you the choices. I got a chicken Caesar salad. That's one choice. And then my other choice is I got these fucking strawberry donuts that have been tempting me for the last 3 or 4 days. And I've been looking at them. I traveled from one part of Florida to another part, and I took the donuts with me. I have not eaten the damn things. I have not eaten these donuts at all but I can't throw them away, right? I got to have them nearby because these donuts are just tempting me like a sexy black woman. And I'm just looking at them like, man, I just want to eat you up. But I know I shouldn't because it's not going to be consistent with the actions I've engaged in that have led me to lose 15 pounds over the last, 2 months. So I truly blessed forever saying I need to throw the donuts out. I know I just can't give it up. I can't give it up. I'm going to try though. I'm going to try. Andrea says, don't eat the donuts. I know. I you know what? While I got y'all on the line. Watch this. I'm going to take these. I'm going to throw them in the trash. Hold on. Man, that was hard to do. Damn. All right, so the donuts are in the garbage. I did not eat the donuts, but that's my battle. That's we all have battles, right? We all have things that we have to work on. My battle is sugar, and I love to pig out. And so the way I was actually able to start losing weight was I said, well, instead of changing who I am, and this actually relates to money. We're going to get on that topic in 1 second. This is a good analogy. I said, instead of changing who I am, and feeling that, and again, going back to repression, instead of repressing what I really want, and so that I end up binging, right? I don't forbid myself from eating anything, any food. If you tell me, Boyce, do you eat red meat? Yeah, I do. Do you eat sugar? Yeah, I do. Do you eat pork? I even eat pork. But what I do is I prioritize. I say, you know what? If I go to a restaurant and there's like pork ribs on the menu, I'm not going to make that the first thing I pick, right? I'm going to go through them and say, well, do they have fish? I don't like the fish. Well, do they have chicken? Yeah, but I don't like the chicken. Do they have steak? Okay, well, no, I don't think I want a steak. Then I might consider the pork, right? But most of the time, 99% of the time, one of the other things gets me before I get to the bottom of the list. Do you understand? So ultimately, what I'm saying to you, this applies perfectly to money. I actually wrote a series of articles a few years ago called Financial Liposuction. And it's all about financial fitness and just kind of how that works. My argument is that if you want to get where you want to be economically, right? If you want to make sound financial decisions for your family, don't think that I'm telling you that you have to become a miser. I'm not telling you that you have to just make every decision perfectly healthy and never waste any money, that Christmas comes and you can't. Dr. Boyce said, don't buy no Jordans. He said, don't buy no Beats by Dre headphones. Don't buy no Gucci Coach. No, I'm not saying any of that. Buy whatever the hell you want. Just make sure you have balance, right? Make sure you prioritize properly. Don't buy the Beats by Dre headphones before you go buy your child some stock, okay? Don't go buy the Air Jordans before you put money in the Family Economic Development Fund. Don't go and buy a Gucci purse before you put money in building your business. Don't act like you can afford the $200 leather jacket, but you can't afford the $200 course on how to build an economic empire for your family, or how to start a business, or how to go, whatever it is you're trying to do, right? So that's the argument, right? Just make sure you prioritize properly, that you have balance, because one of the things I always believed was, back in the days when I was working hard, my motto for working hard in life always was, I always thought like an investor. That's what got me ahead. My motto used to be that I'm going to spend a few years living like nobody else will, so I can spend the rest of my life living like nobody else can. So what that meant was that I wasn't, deferring pleasure and joy in my life. I wasn't deferring I wasn't sort of foregoing the chance to enjoy money and enjoy spending and enjoy life like everybody else. I just worked hard so that later on, when I finally do cash in my chips, when I finally do get a chance to enjoy the fruits of my labor, I'm going to be in a better position than I would be if I never did anything. That's the problem. The problem is not the fact that we're not perfect. The problem is that some of us don't invest at all. It's like in college. Like I made straight A's in college. I'm not gonna lie. I was an absolute academic stallion in college. I was a beast because I was so hungry to succeed. I had never succeeded academically before. I was a very bad student in high school. So when I got to college and I found out I could do it, and I knew college was like a way out, I really dedicated my life to it, to being the best I could be. And the funny thing was that people thought that because I had good grades, because I made straight A's on every report card, or most of them, that I didn't have any fun. They were like, well, how do you have any fun? You gotta have more fun. You're too serious, boy. It's like, why do you work so much? Why do you study so much? I'm like, what are you talking about? I have more fun than you. I have a lot more fun than you. It's just I study before I go have fun. If I know I want to go to a party, I'll go to any party I want to. I just make sure I study before I go to the party. The people that flunk out of college are not the ones who go to parties. See, because people say that. People say, well, don't be partying when you go to school and all this other stuff because you're going to flunk out. No, the people who go to parties don't flunk out. It's the people who go to parties and don't do anything else, right? The ones who don't study before they go to parties. So it actually, just so you guys know this, I actually do a lot of mentorship for college students. I actually have a program called at thecollegestudentguide.com. That's thecollegestudentguide.com, where I talk to college students about everything they need to know about college. My first book was actually on that topic, called Everything You Ever Want to Know About College. So what I do basically is I just tell them everything that professors will never tell them, everything about the system, everything about college life, everything that you need to know. So there's no excuse to go to college and say, well, I wouldn't have made that mistake if somebody had told me, or I'm a first generation college student and that's why I made that mistake. No, there's no excuse. The internet connects people who have experience with people who don't. So if your parents, for example, don't have life experience or didn't share life experiences with you that will make you wiser, find other older people on Facebook even and listen to their advice. I like what the internet does. I think the internet does a lot for the village in terms of bringing black people together and white people and all kinds of people. So anyway, let's see here. Doris says, who will take care of you when you're old? You cannot depend on Social Security. May not be there. Don't depend on trust the government. Yeah, I agree. Don't depend on the government. See, if the government's falling apart, if they're losing money economically, they're going to make absolutely sure that you're the last to know. See, that's what happened with Enron. Because the problem is, if everybody knows that the ship is sinking, then everybody starts to panic, which increases the likelihood that the ship will sink. Right. So ultimately what they do is they say, well, the people who have access to information are the ones who are going to be saved. Those who don't have access to information are going to be the ones who sink. So at the end of the day, it's absolutely true. The government's not going to save you. Social Security is dying. I talked about this yesterday in the podcast, actually, on reasons why I believe America's dying. Now, what I want to do is I want to read something to you real quick from Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson, which you can check this book out if you like. I recommend it for everybody. It's one of the most important books ever written in the history of this country. And you can actually, this book and other books I recommend is at thedrboycelibrary.com. That's thedrboycelibrary.com. So let me read this to you so you can understand how Europeans and Arabs and Moors as well, used powernomics to obliterate Africa. This is in the late 15th or early 15th century where they started to do this, and it actually pervades to this day. It's a chapter on it starts on page 112. It's the Doctrine of Unequal Exchange. And here's what he says. He says, while Africa's human capital was being displaced through slavery, so too were its natural and mineral wealth. Arab, Moor, Spanish, and Portuguese merchants traded low-value fabricated items such as pig iron, brass rings, religious artifacts, household gadgets, and used firearms for Africa's highly valued commodities such as gold, silver, quality leather, long cotton, art objects, black slaves, and ivory. European manufactured items were primarily for decorative purposes or tribal warfare. African commodities, on the other hand, were internationally used to undergird major economies and commerce. This imbalance is described as the doctrine of unequal exchange. Let me see here. So he says the doctrine of unequal exchange depleted Africa's resources, but the wealth and revenue generated from commerce with Africa revived Europe's sagging economies. So basically what he's explaining in this book, the book is Black Labor, White Wealth. Somebody's asking which book it is. Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. You can check it out at thedrboycelibrary.com. Basically what he's saying is that Europeans were struggling in the 15th century, and Africa was the bailout mechanism, right? Now you might say, well, how did that happen? How did Africans, allow this to occur? How did this imbalance occur, right? I mean, because it's voluntary exchange for the most part. I mean, until they started invading and taking stuff, but initially it was voluntary exchange. Well, what he says is that, he's quoting a book from Norman Coombs. I don't know which book. He says, Norman Coombs says that African tribal chiefs willingly participated in such questionable trade practices because West African economies were subsistence-based, and therefore people were satisfied with the status quo and saw no need to accumulate wealth and power. So he says, true or not, white traders took advantage of the tribal chiefs' generosities. This self-destructive tribalism, self-enslavement, and lack of concern for wealth were interpreted by Europeans as a sign of inferiority. They believed these uncivilized, childlike heathens, quotation marks, neither appreciated nor deserved their God-given wealth. Consequently, whites rationalized that it was their moral duty to take and utilize Africa's wealth and put blacks to productive work as slaves. By the latter part of the 15th century, West Africa's great trading markets had been closed down by Arab invaders, and its great university centers were under the control of Arab scholars. The interference of Arabs and Europeans into the government, educational, and religious affairs of West Africa caused the economic conditions of Africa and Europe to reverse. Africa grew poorer, while Europe grew richer and more powerful. So if you want to know sort of the foundation of this and where all this imbalance comes from, why European countries and Western countries seem to have everything and Africa struggles, I like Dr. Anderson's book because he gives you the origins of that. He helps you understand where this divergence occurred. Now, and this is from the book Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. You can check it out along with Powernomics at thedrboycelibrary.com. That's where I pick books that I think are, the books that I think children should read, all black people should read. So here's the funny thing though. I was meditating on this whole doctrine of unequal exchange, what it means, how it worked, why anybody would participate and something like that. And what I did was, I dug into it a little deeper and I said, oh my God, this is insane. This is interesting. We still do that today. We still do that now. We do that on Black Friday. Every year, Black Friday, Christmas, all through the year. The doctrine of unequal exchange, where we engage in consistent trade with white folks who don't support our businesses, mind you. Now, mind you, white people won't ever support black businesses very much, or not on a collective scale, not on a broad scale. For black businesses, black consumers is all they got a lot of times. When black consumers don't support black businesses, they don't have anything. They die. White people now, they can survive without your money, but you can't survive without black people's money. Because white people, if they lose their black consumers, they're like, oh, we lost $1 trillion in spending, but we have 12 trillion left. Black businesses don't have that backup plan. So we engage in this doctrine of unequal exchange, or this trade imbalance, where not only are we supporting their businesses more than we support our own, but we also are trading things of real value for things of no value. What's an example? You go to the mall and you pull out your credit card to buy you some Beats by Dre headphones for $250. Those headphones cost $13 to make. So you've given them $250 in real value. That's real money you're going to have to repay when you go into debt. You've given them real value. They can use that money to build their business. They can use that money to build their community. They can use that money to make political moves. They can use that money to invest in their kids, send their kids to college, whatever they want to do. So they got $250 in real economic value. You got $13 in value from the headphones and a $237 illusion. You got a complete illusion. You got your self-esteem. You got the cool factor that now you got the Beats by Dre headphones, so people going to think you're cool. That's what you get. You're not getting any economic value back. So that is the doctrine of unequal exchange played out in 2016, the same as they did in 1452. So the exact same doctrine of unequal exchange that led to the economic decimation of Africa leads to the economic decimation of African American communities right now. I want you to process that. And what I want you to do, here's what I want you to do. If you really care about this stuff, when you sit down with your family over Thanksgiving in a couple of days and everybody's sitting around and everybody's chilling, I want you to see if you can casually bring this up and say, you know, the other day Dr. Boyce said this thing about the doctrine of unequal exchange and blah, 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 blah. And I just want you to have the casual conversation with people, or do a little preaching if you want to. If you got somebody young that's looking up to you, listening to you, talk about this kind of stuff. Have these conversations. Make this part of your family's dialogue. You know, because this is what we have to talk about if we want to be empowered. We can't just talk about how mad we are about how racist other people are. We can't sort of sit around and talk about how unfair things are. You know, we're the only group of people in the world who kind of believes that complaining about your oppression to the people who are oppressing you will help you fight the oppression that they're inflicting upon you. Here's a newsflash. White people know that they're oppressing you. They just don't care. So when you go and you say Black Lives Matter, there's one way for me to say it, right? It's one thing for me to say Black Lives Matter, right? Black lives is gonna matter, right? I can say it like that. Or I could say, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Why don't you care? Why don't you change your hearts and minds? Like, we're Americans too. Like you're not treating us right. You know, like that's just so unfair. That will, if you're young and you're listening to this live stream, and I hope if you're young that you're telling other young people to like come and hang out with us, because I don't care if you're in college. This is better. This is better than anything you learn on that campus. I guarantee it. But please tell them that you're going to be frustrated for the rest of your life if you're constantly complaining to white people about how black people are being treated, and you're exposing it. We're going to expose what they're doing to black people, and everyone will rally into our defense. No. Now, if you expose a gorilla getting shot in the zoo to white Americans, they will come and rally. They've shown it, right? They'll from all walks of life, all corners of the world, they will come down on that zoo and make their lives a living hell. But if you expose a black man being shot, you're gonna have a whole lot of angry black people. You got some good white folks in there too who will say, no, this isn't right. But the majority of people will say, wow, I wonder why the cop shot the black man, or I don't give a shit. Like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. Or why don't those people stop it? Why don't they stop letting their people get killed like that? Right? Like the thing about it is, here's the thing. Here's the point. Here's what I'm trying to say to you. Look, at the end of the day, there must be space. We must fight back against the assimilationists and the civil rights crowd, that and the people that want to fight within the system and believe the system's going to save us. We have to kind of challenge them to understand the importance of mobilization and sort of folding back into the core. You have to have a core. You have to have a base, or you will be diluted. And so what I believe is that our base, our core, we can do what the Spartans did. I brought up the Spartans earlier. The Spartans said, you know what? Ain't nobody going to defend us but us. Yeah, we might sign treaties with other nations, but we're not going to be enslaved by anybody. What we're going to do to defend our nation is we're going to make sure that every one of our children is prepared to be a soldier. Every one of our boys is ready to go out here and fight and is glad to do it because he loves the country so much. He's super well trained. He's very confident, and he's willing to make a sacrifice for something greater than himself. If you do those basic things, then you really can't be stopped. Like if I had a child right now, I don't even know, I may have another child one day. I don't know, maybe one day. But if I had a child right now, what I would do with that child, number one, I'm not sending that child to the public school system. I'm not letting that system get a hold of my baby on any level. You ain't touching my son. You ain't touching my daughter. Ever. Because I don't want my child going to your school where I got to deprogram them from the brainwashing. I don't want them going to school where they're going to run into coons that'll tell them to go home and watch Empire and Basketball Wives and all this other stuff. I don't want my son getting shot by a gangbanger on his way home from school because somebody else's parents ain't doing their job. I don't want my children being sort of sucked into all this nonsense. I know it's out there, and I'll prepare them for it, and they'll be exposed to everything. But they will be exposed after they receive their armor, after they receive their intellectual and spiritual armor. They will have been coached by me to be ready for all of this, and we will contextualize everything so they will understand how the brainwashing works and how to counter that. So they're prepared, but they have to start off with self-love and confidence, enough confidence to be a leader who shines light in the middle of a very dark room, who's not afraid to shine a light when everybody else around them has become addicted to the darkness. I need my child to have that confidence before they go out in the world. So at that point, I'm educating my child every day. Everything starts with love. Every day starts with, son, I love you. Sweetie, I love you. I'm here for you. Everything starts with love. Then after you build off of love, so the love's out of the way. They got the self-esteem. They know somebody cares about them. Those little issues are gone, right? So then we can focus on the higher level issues. Like, okay, my child starts their first business by the age of 6. Right? We do very basic things. We're talking about economic independence from a very early age. We're talking about working hard from a very early age. We're talking about extreme commitment to educational excellence at an early age. We're talking about competition at an early age. We're talking about how much we love black people at an early age. So they will know these ideas so deeply. They will be so deeply embedded in their conscious and subconscious mind that they won't even know where it came from. They're just going to assume they came out of the womb knowing these things and thinking about the world this way. So when they run into the coonery, they're going to be like, why? What in the hell are these people thinking? Like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. Because when you're raised on the coonery, when you're raised on the unhealthiness of this world, then you literally get to the point where you become so insane that you think that the abnormal is normal. There are many, many things about your life that you live on a daily basis that is only seems normal because you don't know any different. It's like an animal that's born in a cage. Like, he thinks being in a cage is normal, even though it may not feel right. But he's like, well, I guess that's the way it's supposed to be because I was born here, and the zookeeper feeds me every day, so he must be my friend. And I guess this is the way animals live, and that's not true, right? He's supposed to be free. He's supposed to be in the wild. He's supposed to be out, living, right? He's a young lion. He's supposed to be out hunting and fighting and meeting women and making babies and all kinds of stuff, right? He's not doing any of that because he's never known what it's like to be free. But once he's introduced to freedom, here's the thing. You can take an enslaved person and introduce them to freedom, and they will always choose the freedom over the slavery. But you cannot take a free person, introduce them to slavery, and have them pick the slavery over the freedom. That's not going to happen. Like, you will see the avenue going that way, but never back in the other direction. When I know black people, I've have so many people that where maybe I've convinced them to quit their jobs, for example. And I know hundreds of people now, or that I've met, maybe thousands, who told me I quit my job either because of you or, something you said made me go ahead and take the plunge, whatever. I know a bunch of people who went in that direction where they left the job, but I can only name maybe one person or two who went in the other direction, who went back to the job after they knew what it was like to be free. So the point of the matter is that, I really think about this, and I just think about, if I was raising kids again, and I may consider having a child. I don't even know if that's something I have the time to do or I want to do, but I would love, part of me would want to do this. But if I was raising a child, if you ever hear that, Mrs. Boyce Watkins, if I got married or something, you ever hear that she's pregnant, just know that that's how that child's being raised. He's raised in a Spartan-like fashion, because as a black person, I understand that his reality is not the same as the white kid. So he has to go into the world with a certain kind of protection that other people don't need. You know, he's gonna come out. He's gonna have to go out into the world ready to fight, ready for war. You know, and so the beautiful thing though is that when you're raised that way, when you're that strong, when you walk in a room and you're the smartest, most confident person in the room, you become the leader. You gain the ability to shape your environment. You're never going to be a product of an environment. Your environment will always be a product of you. Think about anybody you know who's really confident, who's really smart, who's really capable, who's really got a lot of power, spiritual power, economic power, political power, whatever. When they come in, it's like the way a collapsed star has so much gravitational pull that it reshapes the space around it. It doesn't just suck things in and have a pull on things. It literally sucks light. It even sucks in light. It becomes a black hole that has such power, such gravity that it literally reshapes a trajectory that extends for trillions of miles out. A neutron star, look it up. A neutron star is so powerful that it literally changes the gravitational field for 5-10 trillion miles away. Right? If there was there's these stars, neutron stars and some other kind of star, where if we were within, say, if our planet was within, say, 100 billion miles of a neutron star, our whole planet would cease to exist. Right? So I want our children to be stars, that to have that kind of gravitational pull that when they walk in a room, everybody's going to get out the way. When they join a conversation, they're immediately going to have an impact. And the only way to do that is you start with confidence, extreme education, extreme love for black people, the willingness to fight, and understanding that in the universe of black children, the laws of political physics kind of shift. We have a different reality from what white people have. Like we're not them. We're not having the same experience. So you got to prepare your children for something different. Anyway, I'm about to go. This is the book I was reading from, Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson. If you want to check out a copy, you can go to thedrboycelibrary.com. That's thedrboycelibrary.com. If you'd like to know about other programs we have, visit blackfinancialliteracy.com. I hope you'll take a step in and just take a look around and see what's there. That's blackfinancialliteracy.com. And also there's some other things that we have. If you want a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, go to drboycewatkins.net. You can get your free e-copy at drboycewatkins.net. And if you'd like to begin your wealth building journey, you can sign up for our program at blackmoney101.com. That's blackmoney101.com. If you go there now, you can get the first month totally free. Just type in blackmoney101.com. All right, I'm about to get out of here, guys. I love you, and it's fun talking to you as always. And remember, just be strong, and you know what? Never be afraid to be black in public. You know, like don't let anybody make you think that that your blackness has to be hidden, that you got a code switch and all that. I ain't code switching for nobody. I'm gonna be exactly who I am in every environment. And if you don't like me, then that's your problem. It's not mine. All right, take care, guys. I'm out of here. Have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon.